You know who had a pop-up game here too was Chris Godwin, where he's the most dangerous, I think, is as a power slot player.
27% of Chris Godwin's targets in 2021 were designed targets. 25.2% in 2022 designed target rate. This year, it's fallen all the way to 8.3%.
Look at the release.
There's your separation.
Great route.
Stutter and go. Gets by clean.
That is unbelievable.
May be the greatest catch I've ever seen.
12 targets, 10 grabs, 155 through the air was by far his most productive day all year long. I was so curious about this, man, and just watching the game too, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Chris Godwin looks like he's lining up in the slot a lot more this week. And you know, I kind of sort of, again, this is in the wash of all these games. It's like I can't really watch all that, you know what I mean? So, but I go back and I look at this now, and I'm like, man, Chris Godwin was so productive. What the hell happened? Again, we are the alignment kings here on Reception Perception, the show. And so guess what, Matt? 55% of his snaps this year, or in this particular game against Green Bay, was in the slot. Normal, it's, first of all, I believe, I looked through a bunch, but I believe this is the highest percentage of snaps that he's played in the slot all year long. Generally, before this game, we're talking about a player that plays 30 to 35% in the slot this particular year, whereas in previous years, he was a 65-70% slot player. Does it just make sense that he had his most productive game in the one game where he's playing the most in the slot? I don't know.
I think it makes a lot of sense because, again, it impacts the ways that he's going to be targeted, the areas of the field that he's going to be targeted. And let's also be super clear. The Packers defense is embarrassing. I mean, Joe Barry, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
They're going to stick with Joe Barry the rest of the season, by the way. I mean, Matt LaFleur said that, but dude, that defense, we have got to be close to enough already territory with the Packers defense. I mean, they just consistently covered Chris Godwin with linebackers and safeties, and
can't do that.
And you can't do that. He's too good to cover with those players. And that's what getting him in the slot does, is he's going to get those advantageous matchups where he can beat those guys in man coverage. This is another point to bring up Fantasy Points data, the designed target stats, because if you just look at 2021 and 2022, 27% of Chris Godwin's targets in 2021 were designed targets. 25.2% in 2022 designed target rate. This year, it's fallen all the way to 8.3%.
Wow.
And I think he is a guy. I don't totally know. And they say that percentage of targets from design plays, like screens and stuff like that. I don't know what other things they would bucket under as designed targets, but it was some of the scheme up stuff that we're talking about here. Godwin can win on real big boy routes too, but I think he's, especially right now at this point in his career, he's at his best, kind of working underneath and breaking tackles after the catch and stuff. 8.3% is just too low for a player like that. He jumps all the way to 15.4% against the Packers in Week 15. I think a lot is because of that role and where they lined him up.
I didn't understand it, right? If there was another player that Tampa Bay had where they were like, man, we got to get this guy in the slot. We got to get him looks there because that's where he could play, but they don't have that guy. So to me, what really just irritates me when I think about this offense in Tampa Bay and what Todd Bowles and the boys are doing out there is just, why are we sliding a guy that we know is an all-pro slot receiver? Why are we sliding this guy outside? For what reason? If we have a reason, okay, I'd love to see it. But it's not as if they have another receiver where they're like, man, we got to get this guy opportunities, because clearly this offense doesn't have that player, right? It's Mike Evans, it's Chris Godwin, and it's Rachaad White. And that is it.
Their third receiver is Trey Palmer, who was a day 3 draft pick, kind of like a speed guy from Nebraska. And he has actually been their primary slot, and he has on the season over 14% of his targets are designed targets. Meanwhile, he's averaging 0.7 yards per route run. Yards per route run, not a perfect stat. I get it. Maybe Trey Palmer is secretly a superstar or something like that. I don't know. I haven't charted him. I didn't have a prospect profile on him, but it does seem a little weird that a guy that's on a mega contract extension for you, a guy who's been a great player in Chris Godwin has sort of gotten ignored here. Maybe the wife stuff, there's something going on from a health perspective, maybe not totally jiving with the coaching staff. I don't know, but I think I'm with you that Dave Canales, the offense coordinator, has done a great job having Baker Mayfield function at a high level in this offense. They've gotten a great year out of Mike Evans, and that's tough too, similar to what we just talked about, where maybe I think Godwin's a really good number 2 receiver, but
for sure
Mike Evans is playing at an all-pro level. Like he's a future Hall of Famer. You're gonna get left by the wayside a little bit here, but we can find a counterpunch here in the passing game. I think that counterpunch can be Chris Godwin. And by the way, I mean, this is a great time for it to happen because the Bucs are probably going to win the damn NFC South and play in a playoff game. So if we can get Chris Godwin activated right now, this is a good time of year for it to happen.